No one talks about the silent battles that come with a twin pregnancy. They show you the joy, the double blessings, the excitement of two heartbeats, but they rarely show you the moments when your own heart feels like it's racing out of your chest. What happens when happiness and fear exist at the same time, when your body is changing faster than your mind can process, and anxiety begins to whisper doubts you never expected? This is not just a story about carrying twins. This is about the invisible weight, the sleepless nights, the overwhelming thoughts, and the strength it takes to face them. If you've ever felt like you were losing control in a moment that was supposed to be beautiful, then this story might feel closer to home than you think. Twin pregnancy. Anxiety crises during a twin pregnancy, how I dealt with them, an honest account of difficult moments and strategies for staying calm. This is more than just a topic. It's a deeply personal journey that many experience but few openly share. In this video, you'll hear the raw truth behind the emotional roller coaster, the unexpected struggles, and the quiet victories that come with carrying two lives at once. If you're going through something similar, or if you want to understand what it truly feels like beyond the surface, stay with me until the end. And if this story resonates with you in any way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. The moment I found out I was pregnant with twins felt like stepping into a dream that was both magical and overwhelming at the same time, as if life had suddenly accelerated beyond anything I had imagined, bringing with it a mixture of excitement and an unfamiliar weight that settled quietly in my chest. At first, everything was filled with wonder. The idea of two heartbeats growing inside me creating a sense of awe that words could barely capture, but beneath that surface, something else began to form. Something subtle and persistent that I couldn't quite name yet. It wasn't fear exactly, not in the beginning, but more like a constant awareness that this journey would be different, more intense, more demanding, and perhaps more unpredictable than anything I had prepared myself for, even in my most thoughtful moments of anticipation. As the days passed, the physical changes came quickly, almost too quickly for my mind to keep up, and with each new sensation, each unfamiliar ache or sudden wave of exhaustion, my thoughts began to spiral in ways I had never experienced before. I found myself questioning everything, analyzing every small detail, wondering if what I was feeling was normal or if it was a sign of something going wrong. And that constant questioning slowly transformed into anxiety that lingered even in the quietest moments. It became difficult to relax, even when there was no immediate reason for concern, as my mind seemed determined to search for problems, creating scenarios that felt real enough to affect my breathing, my heartbeat, and my sense of control. The first real anxiety crisis came unexpectedly, catching me completely off guard during what should have been an ordinary moment, and it felt like my body had suddenly decided to rebel against me without warning. My heart raced uncontrollably, my chest tightened, and my thoughts became chaotic and overwhelming, as if they were all trying to speak at once, leaving me unable to focus on anything except the growing sensation that something was terribly wrong. In that moment, logic disappeared, replaced by a deep instinctive fear that I couldn't easily explain, and even though nothing external had changed, everything inside me felt like it was collapsing, creating a sense of helplessness that was both frightening and disorienting. After that first episode, a new layer of awareness settled into my daily life, one that made me constantly alert to the possibility of it happening again, and that anticipation alone became a source of anxiety in itself. I began to monitor my body more closely, paying attention to every heartbeat, every breath, every shift in energy. As if by observing everything I could somehow prevent another crisis from occurring. But instead of bringing comfort, this hyper-awareness only intensified my fears, creating a cycle where the more I tried to control my experience, the more out of control I felt, as if I were trapped in a loop that I didn't yet understand how to break. There were moments when the anxiety would build slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a quiet storm gathering strength in the distance, and other times when it would strike suddenly, without warning, leaving me feeling vulnerable and unprepared. During those moments, it became difficult to trust my own body, as sensations that were likely normal began to feel threatening, and even the simplest physical changes seemed amplified by the fear that accompanied them. I realized that the anxiety wasn't just about the pregnancy itself, but also about the uncertainty, the responsibility, and the overwhelming realization that I was now carrying not one, but two lives, each depending entirely on my ability to remain strong and stable. One of the most challenging aspects of these anxiety crises was the sense of isolation that came with them, as if I were experiencing something that couldn't be fully understood by those around me, even by people who cared deeply and wanted to help. It wasn't that I didn't have support, but rather that the internal nature of what I was feeling made it difficult to express in a way that others could truly grasp. Explaining anxiety is often like trying to describe a storm to someone standing in the sunshine, and during a twin pregnancy, that storm can feel even more intense, more unpredictable, and more consuming than anything I had previously encountered in my life. At some point I realized that simply trying to ignore or suppress the anxiety was not working, and that I needed to find a different approach, one that involved acknowledging what I was feeling rather than fighting against it. This shift in perspective was not easy, as it required me to face the discomfort directly, to sit with the sensations and the thoughts without immediately trying to escape them. But it was also the beginning of a gradual change in how I experienced those moments. Instead of viewing the anxiety as an enemy, I began to see it as a signal, a message from my body that something needed attention, whether it was rest, reassurance, or simply a moment of stillness. Breathing became one of the first tools I consciously used to regain a sense of control, even though at first it felt almost too simple to make a real difference. And yet, in the middle of an anxiety crisis, focusing on something as basic as inhaling and exhaling provided a small anchor in the chaos. I would remind myself to slow down, to take deeper breaths, to feel the air moving in and out of my body, and gradually, that awareness began to create space between the overwhelming thoughts and my physical response. It didn't eliminate the anxiety completely, but it helped reduce its intensity, making it more manageable and less all-consuming. Another important step was learning to challenge the thoughts that fueled my anxiety, recognizing that not every thought deserved to be believed or followed, especially when they were driven by fear rather than reality. This required a level of awareness that I had to develop over time, as my mind had become accustomed to reacting automatically to any perceived threat. But by gently questioning those thoughts, by asking myself whether they were based on facts or assumptions, I began to weaken their hold on me. It was a gradual process, one that required patience and persistence, but it allowed me to create a small but significant shift in how I responded to moments of uncertainty. Rest also became a crucial part of managing my anxiety, even though it sometimes felt counterintuitive to slow down when my mind was racing. But I learned that my body needed that time to recover, to process, and to restore a sense of balance. Giving myself permission to rest without guilt was not always easy, especially in a world that often values productivity above all else. But during a twin pregnancy, listening to my body became essential. I began to understand that taking care of myself was not a luxury, but a necessity, not only for my own well-being but also for the well-being of the two lives growing inside me. There were days when everything felt heavier, when the anxiety seemed more persistent, and during those times, I had to remind myself that progress was not always linear, that setbacks were a natural part of the journey rather than a sign of failure. It was important to recognize that even on the difficult days, I was still moving forward, still learning, still finding ways to cope, even if it didn't always feel that way in the moment. This perspective helped me to approach those days with a little more compassion, a little more patience, and a little less judgment toward myself. Support, even when it couldn't fully capture what I was feeling, still played an important role in helping me navigate those moments, as simply knowing that I was not entirely alone made a difference. Even if the internal experience remained uniquely mine, sharing parts of my journey, even in small ways, helped to release some of the pressure, allowing me to feel seen and heard, even if only partially. It reminded me that while anxiety can feel isolating, connection, even imperfect connection, can still provide comfort and strength in unexpected ways. Over time, I began to notice small changes in how I responded to anxiety. Moments when I was able to recognize the early signs and take steps to manage them before they escalated into full crises. And those moments became important milestones in my journey. They showed me that while I might not be able to eliminate anxiety entirely, I could learn to live with it in a way that felt less overwhelming, less controlling, and more balanced. It was not about achieving perfection, but about creating a sense of resilience, an ability to face difficult moments with a little more confidence and a little less fear. The experience of carrying twins while dealing with anxiety taught me a level of self-awareness that I might not have developed otherwise, as it forced me to pay attention not only to my physical health but also to my emotional and mental well-being. It highlighted the importance of balance, of listening to my body, of respecting my limits, and of recognizing that strength is not always about pushing through, but sometimes about slowing down, stepping back, and allowing myself to rest and recover. This understanding became one of the most valuable lessons of the entire journey. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the anxiety would resurface in unexpected ways, reminding me that this was an ongoing process rather than a problem with a simple solution. But those moments no longer felt as overwhelming as they once had. I had developed tools, strategies, and a deeper understanding of myself, and that made a significant difference in how I experienced those situations. It allowed me to face them with a sense of preparedness, even if I couldn't predict exactly when they would occur. As the pregnancy progressed, I found myself gradually shifting my focus, moving from a place of constant fear to one of cautious trust, learning to believe that my body was capable, that I was capable, and that even in the presence of anxiety, I could still move forward with strength and resilience. This shift did not happen overnight, but it grew slowly, shaped by each experience, each challenge, and each small victory along the way, creating a foundation of confidence that I could rely on even in uncertain moments. Looking back, I realized that the anxiety I experienced was not a sign of weakness, but rather a reflection of the immense responsibility and emotional depth that comes with carrying two lives. And that understanding has allowed me to approach those memories with a sense of compassion rather than judgment. It has helped me to see the journey not only in terms of its difficulties, but also in terms of the growth, the resilience, and the strength that emerge from those challenges, shaping me into someone more aware, more grounded, and more prepared for what was to come. In the end, this journey was not just about a twin pregnancy, but about learning to navigate uncertainty, to face fear, and to find calm in the midst of chaos, even when it seemed impossible at times. It was about discovering that strength does not mean the absence of anxiety, but the ability to continue moving forward despite it, to find moments of peace even in the most difficult situations, and to trust that even in the presence of fear, there is still space for growth, resilience, and hope. Anxiety during a twin pregnancy can feel like an invisible storm, one that rises without warning and tests your strength in ways you never expected. But within that experience lies an opportunity to discover a deeper connection with yourself. It teaches patience, awareness, and the quiet power of resilience, showing that even in the most overwhelming moments, there is a way to breathe, to pause, and to continue forward. If there is one truth to hold on to, it is this: you are stronger than the fear you feel, and even on the hardest days, you are already doing more than enough.